Okay, our final talk will be given by Claire Mulvenna. Claire joined us in August, September of this year from the University of Chester. Claire is currently studying for her PhD and will present on introducing performance analysis to English Academy football and specifically looking at a coach's half-time team talks.
So hi guys, my name's Claire Mulvenna and this is a piece of my research that I'm doing for my PhD. So just to start off with, kind of the holy grail, if you think, as a researcher and looking at performance analysis, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to prove that performance analysis feedback can directly impact on performance. Okay, that is the dream. For me to be able to say to a coach, if you engage in performance analysis in this way, then you're going to be more successful, you're going to score more goals, you're going to win more games. If I can do that, it leads to more moments like this, and I am absolutely buzzing, okay? I fly through my Viva, everybody's laughing. However, it's not that simple, okay? Research is great, but as we've all said today, context is everything in football, okay? I'm not going to be able to prove that by a coach engaging in performance analysis, they're going to be able to win more games. So what can I do as a researcher? Well, what I can do is I can look at the role performance analysis plays. So I can look at how coaches engage in it, I can look at how they use it, I can look at how players respond to it, and I can look at the opportunities and the challenges that there are for us to embed performance analysis within games. So that led to me coming up with this study. So what I did was I wanted to really focus on the half time. So why half time? Well, it's because it's a short period of time and we can look at the engagement between the analyst and the coach. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at what opportunities are there for half-time feedback, what are the challenges to introducing feedback at half-time, and I wanted to identify what it would maybe influence the coach to do if we offered them video feedback at half-time. So how did we do it? Well, last season I worked for a full season with an under-15 EPPP Academy 3 side. Why did we go for EPPP Academy Level 3? Because they had the least amount of performance analysis experience, both in terms of the coaches and in terms of the players. So there was an academy analyst that was assigned to the academy, but predominantly they worked with the older age groups. So for me, working with the under-15s, I kind of had a blank slate to introduce performance analysis with and to measure how it would change their practice. So what did I do? Well, I observed them for 6 games to see what their half-time feedback was. What was it focused on? How did they give it? There was no performance analysis at this stage. I interviewed a number of coaches, the head coach of the under-15 side, the assistant coach of the under-15 side. We introduced a performance analyst who was going to work with this under-15 side, so we spoke to them. And we also spoke to the head of the academy. And one of the reasons why we wanted to include them in the process was we really wanted it to be a kind of top to bottom representation so that it included everyone within kind of the coach development pathway. We then, through involvement of the players, the head coach, the assistant coach, the performance analyst, and the head of academy, we came up with a half-time feedback process. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to include everyone within that process. So I didn't want to say, as a PhD student, this is what you should do. I didn't want the players to just develop it on their own. I didn't want the coach to develop it on their own. But we wanted it to be a really holistic approach with everyone having some input. So we ran a workshop on a training evening. We got input from everyone and we developed a half-time feedback process. We then implemented that. We live coded 6 games, and at half-time we provided the opportunity for coaches to see both basic statistical analysis, but predominantly video feedback of the first half of the game. Once we'd done that, we then interviewed all the same people that we interviewed at the start to see how it had changed their practice, what their perceptions were, and moving forwards, how they'd like to continue engaging in performance analysis. So this is the process that we introduced and we came up with. Essentially, what it involved was at the very start, so 2 minutes before half-time, the coach and the performance analyst would get their heads together around the laptop which had been used to live code the games. The coach would then decide if they wanted to see anything, what they wanted to see. They'd then either use that information to feed it back directly to the players through their halftime feedback, or they might say, to be honest, this week I don't want to see anything. They might refer it to their assistant coach. They might direct players to come and watch stuff directly with the analyst. It was a really flexible approach, but we wanted to have some structure in place. So what did we find out? Well, unsurprisingly, we found out that halftime feedback predominantly is focused on reviewing the match performance and identifying changes that are going to move ahead in the second half. No surprises there. However, what we did find out was that performance analysis can introduce new information to coaches at halftime. So what we found out was that the coaches, in essence, were quite surprised at the information they were presented with through basic statistical analysis and also the videos. So where's some evidence to back it up? Well, this was one of the half times that we actually presented and we recorded. And it's just a simple conversation where the performance analyst presented some statistical analysis to the coach, and the coach was saying, we've had far more attempts than we thought. Oh my God, we've had 5 to 13 attempts. And that's not including set pieces from the analyst. Lead coach, wow, that is some food for thought. I wouldn't have even thought mentioning it. Then at the bottom, they actually took that information and embedded it within their halftime feedback and presented that back to the players. So it was really interesting for me as a researcher to see that the coaches could take the information and were being introduced to new information from the performance analysis. In the interviews that we did at the end of kind of the piece of research, the coaches were very much saying, look, 100% it influenced me. It really showed me a different side to the game that I was seeing. The players as well were saying, look, it influenced me. It changed the way that I was thinking moving into the second half. So for me as a researcher, this is really, really important. However, the two biggest challenges that we saw were quite critical ones. So when speaking to the head of academy, money is the biggest challenge to embedding performance analysis within an academy setup. The more money that they have, the more they can try and engage and introduce more people. Second one was the time. The more that we leave this work to coaches, the less coaches can do, unfortunately. So they were the two biggest challenges. Why is this important? Well, it's important because we've found out that we can introduce, as performance analysts, new information to coaches, which is really, really important. And it's great for performance analysis to be able to show that and us to kind of prove it. However, what we've identified is that there's limited training around how we develop that process. So what do we need to do next? Well, we need to speak to coaches to discuss how they want to use performance analysis more. We need to identify common opportunities and challenges to coaches using performance analysis before. And finally, we need to design more coach education workshops that help analysts work with coaches and develop this process, whether it's like the one we did here at halftime or whether it's pre-match or post-match. We've got to make the analyst and the coach talk and work together more so that they can come up with an effective way of working together. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That was a great way to end, and I think you highlighted some really important assumptions that we make. One, that every football club has an analyst or even the facilities and equipment to do some performance analysis, and secondly, that coaches actually know how to then interpret and use that information. And I think we've been fortunate enough today to hear from clubs who have the resource to be able to do that, but recognising that there are also clubs out there that maybe don't have that opportunity.